All right, everyone, we are ready to learn about how we're going to solder up our LED light strip for our project. So right here we have our project, and as your acrylic slides into that, right, we have this strip of LED lights here, and we need to get power to it, and we're going to use a USB port for this, a 5 volt, so that you can power this off of a computer, cell phone charger, portable battery, right? Anything that you can plug in and draw power from. You can charge, or you can not charge, but you can power your light strip from. So let's see how we actually do this. All right, let me turn this here. All right, so let's look at our first light strip right here. This comes already with this USB on it, but we have this light strip here and we can confirm that it works. Now you're going to get a light strip that is 6.5 inches long, right? And that's why you're making the top of your acrylic, or the bottom of your acrylic, 6.5 inches. So we got 6.5 inches, which is 10 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So right here, we are going to make our cut. So when we plug this back in, this light strip section still works. This one doesn't. If you could kind of go in here and make that connection still, that light strip, there you can kind of see how it would continue to work, right? So how do we get this light strip to work without this additional light strip? That's a great question. Well, the answer would be to use solder. So we're going to take a USB cable, right? We want this side. We don't so much care about this side. So there's some heat tape on this, and we are just going to take this end, cut it off. Then from there, we can go in and not about an inch down. We don't need to expose a whole lot. And I'm gonna just kind of use this very gently. If you go through, it's not that big of a deal. You can cut a little bit more off, but I just wanna go through this outer layer of insulation. So I pull that off, and then this is what the leftovers look like, right? So we're gonna take this, pull all of that back, and we can actually, this insulation here kind of helps give the cable some rigidity and helps ground it. But we're going to get rid of all of that, and then we can peel this other layer back right here, and we are going to expose our wires inside. So get rid of this insulation, and really, out of all of these wires in here, this little bundle of wires, we really only care about 2 of them, and that is our red and our black, which is going to be our power source for your light, red being positive, black being our negative lead. So kind of splay these wires out here and isolate the 2. These bundles here, I know I'm not going to need, so I can just clip those out. And I got my white, which I don't need, my green I'm not going to need, and actually I have some cloth rope in here that I'm assuming is for some added rigidity. So we can just trim everything else out of there, and boom, we're left with our 2 cables, our red and our black. These are tiny little cables, so we just need to take the insulation off the ends, right? It's going to be hard go, to just, these are 24 gauge cables, which is very small. But we don't need a huge application. So we're just gonna pull the end off. There you can kind of see that, right? And that's what we're looking for. And before we get soldering, we're gonna use this heat shrink tube. This will come into play later on, but you need about an inch long section of this, and we're going to put that onto our tube, like so. And we're ready to start. Let's just confirm, before we get our soldering going, we can confirm we have our red side, our red positive, black negative. Hopefully you can kind of see this. We've got our red, black, positive, negative. We're gonna plug this into a USB source here, right? Try and keep these, just a good idea to keep them from shorting out. When I say shorting, I mean if these cables touch, we're gonna lose some of that voltage, right? So again, just confirm that your strip is working positive and negative, all right? This is wonderful, it is working. All right, we're ready to start soldering. So we're gonna use here our, you're gonna have to find something on this for weight. I'll just use this here to hold it down. Hopefully you can kind of see what's going on. Here is our soldering iron. This is what yours, this is probably here gonna be what yours looks like. It's important to only hold it by the plastic end. Anything above this is upwards around 300 degrees, and it will really burn you. And we don't want that. So I'm gonna make sure on a wet sponge here, oh, sorry for that terrible sound. We're gonna clean that off. And what I wanna do here is I'm gonna just touch the tip of the soldering iron to my lead on my positive side. I just wanna build up a small well, right? Not a big one, small little well, right like that, of some solder. So now I'm gonna come over here and do the same thing on the other side. Hold the tip on to that small section, just like that. So now that I have these hot, and well, they're no longer hot, but now I can go back. I'm going to take my my wire. I'm going to hold it onto that section. It will turn it back into liquid here. Take a second. There it goes. There it's starting. So there we go. My solder's hot again. I'm trying to just take that and insert my wire into that. My wire is absorbing some of that solder, and there we go. So I'm just letting that get hot, and then I'm letting that, now I'm gonna let that cool. Let that cool down so it's nice and it's embedded into the solder. Yep. I'm gonna unplug this just so I don't blind myself. Now I'm gonna go and do the same thing on my negative side, negative to black. Again, I'm gonna hold this here on my other side. Heat that solder up. Also gonna kind of try and hold my wire near there so it's hot, getting hot as well. There we go. Now I got my and then just maybe add a tiny bit of solder on top. There we go. So what you're trying to avoid, kind of what I'm doing, and it's hard to do, I will admit it, is what we're trying to avoid is melting the plastic of our connection point here. So I'm gonna just add a little bit more solder onto there. All right, there we go. All right. Clean that off. Put that back. Gonna just hold that there for a second. Confirm everything works. Now I'm ready to put my small piece of insulation here back on. So I'm gonna take this heat shrink and I'm gonna slide it back down, and I'm just gonna slide it over everything right up to that very first first LED. I don't want to cover that LED. Then from there, we're using our fancy heat gun here, and we're gonna just take this, have that running, and as we heat this up, this tube, you can see right there, there's a pretty good gap in it. You just want to keep this moving and kind of rotating. Moving and rotating. And there it goes, it's starting to shrink. And all right, and there we are. That heat shrunk down. We got a nice clean finish, no big gaps. That heat shrink is also, I'm gonna give it, it's a little warm, right? But I'm just gonna give it a little squeeze there and really let it hold those wires in along with the solder. Let's just confirm that everything works by plugging it in. Now we have our LED strip attached to our USB cable. All right, so that's what you're gonna need to do now. Make sure that you follow the directions and count all your LEDs. Go slow, I know it can be frustrating. Also be very careful. Like I said, this is super duper hot, 300 degrees, it can burn you really quickly. So pay a lot of attention what you're doing. I'm here if you have questions. Rock and roll.